that part needs to flow. I think there needs to be an incentive for the people to build 3 2s instead of 4 3s, maybe even 2 2s, that they're building. And then the other part when you look at this, which is a concern, is the following. In 1970, do you know the average median household income was $9,900? Let me give you the exact number so you have it. The median household income was $9,900. The median home price was $23,000 at 2.3 times. Then in 80, we went 3 times. Then in 90s, we went 4 times. Then today, we're at in 2020, we were 5 times. So you make $80,000 to buy something, it's $400,000. $80,000, yeah, $400,000, 5 times. Do you know in some markets like Miami, LA, New York, that number is 7 to 13 times your salary? How in the hell are they supposed to do that? So if the incentive opens up and you're building something I can afford, I'd like to see the BlackRocks go into that. But if you're going and picking up everything, and then you're making rent control to these 5 corporations that now own it, almost it becomes like a oligopoly, by 5, like centralize these. That's a challenge for the average individual.
Here's the process here, and you hit the nail on the head here, Pat. What you said was that where are the starter homes? And the starter homes are marketed to people who can't afford. They can't qualify for a mortgage. So the starter business has completely disappeared. BlackRock has no financial incentive in getting in the starter.
Let's give them the incentive.
So what happens is what normally happened back in 1970 or 1980 or 1990 before the housing crisis is that you started with a starter home. You built up equity, and then you moved to the 3-2 and the 4-3.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the ability to get a mortgage to get to the starter home, you're stuck renting for the rest of your life.
Tom, how old were you the first time you bought a house?
I paid I know exactly. I was 24.
24 years old. By the way, that's normal.
And
it used to be. It was normal.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what year it was. It was 1986. Because I was born in 62. And so that's why I was 24. I had just gotten out of college. I paid $205,000 for a home on Lopez Street, just off of Topanga Canyon, south of the Boulevard in Woodland Hills. You know that area, Pat, right?
Of course I do.
And by the way, guess how big the house was?
1,400 square feet.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Because that's when that neighborhood was all built. And the people had retired. I had to put windows in it, so I had to do some of that. And that's what I did. But that's 1986.
Okay, so do me a favor. Can you ask the following question in chat? Ask, what is the average age of first-time homeowners from 1970, 1980, 1990 to today? Watch this number here, okay, till today. It tells me, I just ran it, 1981, the average age of first-time homeowner was 29. In 1991, for whatever reason, it dropped down to 28, then 32, in 2030, in 2010, 33, 35, 38. You know what that number is today? He just said it. 40 years old.
Yeah, and eventually it'll be no one. Eventually it's just going to be a rental market.
That's not good. You can't have that. No. You cannot have. That's a very big problem.
I know.
Well, we have to break a code. And here's the code. We all celebrate when mom and dad retire and the equity of their house has gone up. They sell that. They put that in the bank. They have that along with maybe some small pension and their Social Security. And now we celebrate that mom and dad retired and won't be a burden on the rest of the family because they were responsible. So you celebrate that on one hand, but now what happens to the house? That house is now unaffordable for the next generation to do the next trick. To me, that's the issue. If housing is a long-term investable asset, which it is because it's real estate and it's scarce, then you have to do one of two things. Keep building rings of the wheel farther and farther from the center of the old city and move businesses further and further from the center of the old city so the jobs are out there. So I don't have to live in Lancaster, Palmdale and drive an hour and a half to Burbank because I work in the motion picture. And people do that today. We know people in LA, right? They live in Palmdale. They drive all the way out to Burbank. And
Palmdale blew up the last 4 years for that specific reason. You could buy a place in Palmdale, a 3-2 for $40,000 30 years ago. And now, what is the average home price in Palmdale? Can you pull up what is the average home price in Palmdale, California? If you pull up just what is the average home price in Palmdale, California today? Again, you could buy 3-2 30 years ago for $40,000 in Palmdale. It was a desert. Palmdale, I think, had a military base. I think
Edwards Air Force Base. The Skunk Works.
Yeah. And so now, if you look at Palmdale, holy shit! Look at this. Look at this. The average median home was $70,000 to $80,000. Low end, you could buy a place for $40,000. It's $520,000 now. So you can't even afford to buy a house in Palmdale.
Pat, let's do this. Let's stay on this and do it. Wait, let's stay on and do it. Do the same thing for Sherman Oaks and Encino or Northridge. Get it? That's where people used to live.
Do the same question except run Encino.
Right. And that's where people would live in Encino and go work in Burbank. Their children now are out here in Palmdale driving all the way into Burbank and Glendale where there's a lot of jobs, especially in media and entertainment. Now look, that's what happened to mom and dad's house. Jeez. And the kids are living for a house 1/3 that. 500 out in Palmdale.
Yeah, and it'll just keep spreading further and further out.
Well, they did.
Until they actually live in Las Vegas.
Then you move to all these other cities. Now, all of a sudden, you're buying a house for people that know California on Zizek's Exit. If you don't know Zizek's Exit, if you know Zizek's Exit, you partied in Vegas a little too much. It's a very small elite group of people know that exit. But we can transition to the next story on what we have. The whole reality here is